This is Link. He has been the main character of every mainline Zelda game for the last 37 years, and he's the reason The Legend of Zelda has a protagonist problem. The Zelda series has featured some of the most revolutionary and groundbreaking games ever released. From the original in 1986 to Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, this series has done more than its fair share of innovation. But while the games have evolved plenty, the main character never has. You see, while Link may be instantly recognizable today, that unsurprisingly wasn't always the case. Going back to 1985 at the Nintendo offices in Kyoto, Japan, Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka were faced with figuring out exactly what Link should be. Miyamoto wanted a character that people could identify with, so they settled on making him a young boy to match their target demographic, but that doesn't make him instantly recognizable. So when Tezuka set out to create the character's sprite, he modeled him after an already familiar young boy in Disney's Peter Pan. And thus, Link was born with a green hat and tunic of his own, as well as a boyish charm to pair with it. But as time went on and Zelda fans got older, the creative directors began to fear that the youthful shine of their Neverland-inspired hero would come off as childish to their now more angsty teen audience. In an attempt to stick to their roots but update their hero, they told a story in which he outgrew his Lost Boy stature and Link was reimagined as a teenager. Ocarina of Time illustrator Yusuke Nakano stated that they wanted to make him come off as more cool and handsome. Thus, they modeled the character after a popular American teen heartthrob at the time. Many have since speculated this figure to be Leonardo DiCaprio, yet another person Nintendo believed that their audience could picture themselves as. While their goal of making a character players could identify themselves with was novel at the time, the reality is that many people aren't the same as Leo, and in turn, Link. Therefore, this doesn't work as it should, and Link has become antiquated in this regard. He is a fit, young, blonde-haired white male. And while he has some defining traits that a select few have been able to align with, whether it be mutism or left-handedness, Link as a character who's meant to represent the player, ironically does not represent a significant portion of the series' fans. I personally am lucky enough to be left-handed, and I made a video a while back speaking on how special it is to me that I share that trait with my favorite hero, and the amount of replies with people sharing a similar sentiment was truly heartwarming. And then I realized how much it sucks that more people can't feel this way. The folks at Nintendo understand that feeling represented is good. After all, that's what they set out to initially do with Link. But plenty of time has passed since then, and it needs to be understood that he isn't the best representative of their audience anymore. According to some of the world's top psychologists, it's been proven that negative representation in the media, whether it be antiquated gender norms, unrealistic body types, stereotyping, or exaggerating connotations, it shockingly has negative effects on consumers, particularly the youth. On the other end of the spectrum, surprise, surprise, it's been found that positive representations of gender, race, ethnicity, and physical traits leads to a more positive self-image and greater sense of pride in oneself. With all this in mind, the scope of Zelda games has become incredibly massive over the past decade, as has the audience. So in turn, we've gotten a plethora of new characters to go along with all these new fans that have come in all shapes and sizes. However, the heroes that we've been introduced to haven't really been anything people can attach themselves to, with a couple of exceptions here and there, particularly Urbosa and Riju. But even their heavy Middle Eastern stereotypes aren't necessarily a great thing. However, despite that, I've seen an Arabic person directly say that it's nice to have a character that looks like them. So I suppose, while it's not a great step, it is still a step in the right direction despite all of these exaggerations. Nonetheless, this has made it clear to me that having more heroic characters that look different than what we've sadly become accustomed to would do wonders for the series and, in all honesty, media as a whole. If you were looking for a simple way to create more inclusivity, the simple fix is to add characters that represent more people. Whether it's critical NPCs or fresh playable characters, this seems to be an easy fix. But Zelda games are somewhat sacred. I mean, have you ever looked at Tingle and thought this wasn't serious? The point is that it's not easy to break the mold and put Link in timeout, even if it's just for a small section of gameplay. But looking back, it's sort of loosely been done many times in the past. Nintendo has previously attempted to change up the gameplay through another character a few times actually. But those efforts have been incredibly tame and honestly pretty bland. But more importantly, they're seldom anything people can insert themselves into. Seriously, take a look. It's a white kid, a bird, an onion, a bird, a rock, and another white kid. Jeez, even I thought it'd be more diverse than that. Of course, there is one other side character I did neglect to mention though. and that's because it sets itself apart from all the others. I'm talking about the ghastly Princess Zelda from Spirit Tracks, and I've been lucky enough to see the effects of this character firsthand. Back in the olden days of the early 2010s, when we were just wee children, my sister and I each had a Nintendo DS, because let's face it, everybody did. One day I was playing Spirit Tracks in the backseat of the car, and my sister saw Princess Zelda in one of the cutscenes possessing a phantom. She saw that you could kinda sorta play as a girl in a Zelda game, and she asked me if she could play despite never taking an interest in any other game in the series. Because I'm an amazing older brother, I told her no, because I was playing. After a little bit of bickering in the backseat, my mother made me pass over the cartridge and she started playing the game. She dabbled for maybe 15 minutes, because the game's awful, and then she never touched the game again. See, I was just trying to be a good older brother and protect her from that train wreck. You see what I did there, trains? Anyways, I guess that wasn't a perfect example, but my point stands clear. Because my younger sister saw a character that she felt represented her, she wanted to play the game. And if it were better than the bottom of the Zelda barrel, maybe she could have become an avid fan of not only that game, but the series as a whole. All because she felt represented and better attached to the Hylian princess. This same principle applies to characters with other physical traits, races, ethnicities, genders, or sexualities that are different from Link's. And with this in mind, it's time the Zelda series takes this step. In essence, there's a lack of inclusivity in media as a whole. So if Nintendo created diversity amongst their characters, children and young adults would experience a stronger emotional connection to the franchise, therefore reaching and retaining a larger and more diverse audience, and further growing the series for the better. Now, all this isn't to say that Link needs to be removed from the games. He'll likely always be the figurehead of the series. But adding new playable characters for specific moments or a different option entirely would be incredibly impactful. If that's too big of a leap though, even significant secondary characters to represent a more diverse audience could go a long way. The Gerudo women we've seen like Urbosa, Noboru, and Riju are a great example of a baby step in the right direction, and with less stereotyping and more variations of people in Hyrule, we could soon see what is one of the greatest video game franchises of all time get even better. But I honestly don't expect you to believe me after just a few minutes of talking. You'll probably need to see this a little more in action, and to do that, you'll want to click this video on the screen right now to see how the effects of the simple trait of Link's left-handedness has endeared myself and countless others to the series. It's pretty good. You won't regret it, I promise. Unless you do regret it, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. Click the video, please.